I mean, a message to anybody with big dreams. You have to have vision, but you got to work hard. You can't be afraid of small beginnings. That's one thing. Everybody's so scared. Like, you want to jump out and be, Kendrick on the jump. You want to be Drake on the jump. You want to be Justin Bieber at 18 and get millions. But, the right way to do it is to take every step and to don't kid yourself. There's a lot of people out here, that's not your gift. Why do you keep working on something that is clearly not your gift? You have to really understand, am I great at this? Not everybody is great at music. And so be realistic about it. And I don't mean, oh, you're from North Chicago, Waukegan. You from the South Side, way out. We on the East Side Killers. How you think you gonna do a Little Bibby, who's my little brother? G Herbo, Queen Key. I was born in Waukegan at Victory Hospital and grew up between North Chicago and Waukegan. But as I got a little older, the train is right there. So as a kid, I was very adventurous. I would go to Highland Park and go to the theater because at that time, they never let brown girls get the big roles in high school for theater or music. So Highland Park was very open to allowing me to be there and teaching me. So, I grew up in the church. My roots are gospel, but obviously being from Chicago, the blues is a big part of me. And so, yeah, I grew up in a musical family. Everybody sings or plays instruments, and, my voice has taken me all over the world. So obviously my music is mixed like me. Whatever I love is kind of just comes out in the music. And we're playing with musicians that love the Lord. So we pray before every session, before we write anything. And so I grew up in a musical family. I always had a music room. My dad played like 6 instruments. He's still performing. My grandparents played. My grandfather played the blues. My grandmother is 94. She still plays gospel and the blues at 94. And so all of my cousins, and I'm named after my great-grandmother, Melissa. That's where the M-A-L-I comes from. And she has almost 600 offspring. And so I'm her namesake. And so everyone in every family, we have the Hunters, the Millers, the DeVos, the Sawyers, everyone did music. But in Chicago, when we were growing up, there really wasn't a music scene. There was house music. And so church was really what we had. We got to sing in church, and I ended up doing all kinds. That's how I met my dear friend Michelle. She was Shelly D on the radio here, and I won talent shows for WGCI. And so I would come downtown and sing and perform. And that kind of got me in the music industry. I was singing at a club called Intas. And I sang at the Redhead Piano Bar, and I met, that got me to New York. I met John Rollins. He was the publisher of Quincy Jones Vibe magazine. And so he invited me to meet Quincy, and then my career just unfolded from there. But here in Chicago, Alan Moore from More Music, he was Christian. He embedded that, put God first in everything you do. And so my first production was on a Pop-Tarts commercial here for Leo Burnett Advertising. And I was about 21 years old. So, my mentors from Charlie and the late, great Clarence Avon are both, Charlie Feldman's still here, but Alan Moore and Clarence are both gone in the last year and a half. But the mentorship that I got from them, out of here. You need people to believe in you. I went through a divorce. I got married really young, and I actually lived 2 doors down 20 years ago in a loft. I moved into a loft here. That was an epic moment where I'm like, what am I going to do in my life? I ended up moving to London and doing music out there. And for my family, nobody leaves Waukegan. To ask them to come to my show downtown here is like asking them to go to Jamaica, half of them, because who's going to drive me? Even if they're young, I don't drive downtown. So you all know what I mean. Even when you're on the south side, coming downtown is like a thing. So that was one epic moment where I decided to leave the country. And the climate of this country was in the same space that it is now, but not as bad when it comes to the racial division. So, I just was sick of hearing the politics, and I'd gone through that terrible breakup. But my real fucking moment was during COVID. And that we all know, all of us went through like realizing who was really around us and why. And so I left the partnership. I'll go back and then I'll go forward. I left the partnership at a world famous studio that I helped bring from going out of business to this space. So I was there for 15 years. And it was, you get to a place where you're just like, I know God has more for me. It just got redundant. And so right before COVID, I hosted the Return of the Dreamers camp for J. Cole. I was one of the executive producers for Cole's first record, Friday Night Lights. He blessed me with that because I graced him with studio time when he didn't have the big budgets. And so that was 10 years later. And I said, hey, I'm leaving. Their team was ready to do a camp. So Return of the Dreamers, we did that. And then I did my Earth Girl camp, which helped brown girls, really all girls, but we focus on who needs it the most. And we had a big music camp for that. And then I was out. And so I really just said to the Lord during COVID, just take me from COVID. I'm tired. You get revealed like who's around you. And I said, if you don't take me, give me a purpose. And that's when I opened my eyes to the Black banker at the Black Banker. That's my husband. We did business for 10 years, knew nothing personal. And we started dating and I started singing again because I was happy just in my heart. And so that was my effort moment. My first effort moment was I'm leaving. I got to do something greater. What am I doing with these people around me that are just taking from me? A lot of them were great, but a lot of them were just taking. And so I started singing again, was like, shoot, if God wants me to do it, he'll open up the doors for me. And then all of a sudden it was like every door open and it's been easy, I think in life, association breeds assimilation. I remember being in Waukegan in North Chicago, and everybody be sitting on the porch, whatever they were doing, smoking weed, doing whatever. Oh, I'm going to do this. I got this patent idea. And they're still 20 years later saying what they want to do. And so you have to be around the people who, like for me, right now I'm in a place where if you don't have God leading your life, then we're probably not going to be on the same road, because I literally have said, here, Lord, you do it. And so at that time in my life, I looked around and everybody was either like, who do you think you are that you could do that from here? Or they just weren't on the same thing I was on. The sad thing is you have to give up every single person around you who's not on that same journey as you. Family members, if they're not supportive, if they're not speaking life into you, you might have to take a break from them. So not everybody sees. I really do believe God plants a desire in your heart. It's biblical. But for me, people have been like, who do you think you are? All these wild ideas. How are you going to be cooking and producing and doing this, and now you're doing this? If God puts it in your heart, you'll see who's around you. He's going to make it plain and clear. And so for me, my advice is to look who's around you, because if you're around people who need you only, you need to be around people who can lift you up and who are up here. Find people who can mentor you. And that was my gift. God blessed me with okay, if I go to so-and-so who's a producer, they're a producer, why would they help me? They trying to get their own. Why don't I go to somebody who's an executive or somebody who can mentor me? And so that was my blessing, to be able to see, okay, they got it going on. I want to be around people who can pour into me, or at least it's a mutually beneficial friendship and relationship, because nowadays nobody have time for that. Well, a message to anybody with big dreams. Number one, you have to have vision, but you got to work hard. You can't be afraid of small beginnings. That's one thing. Everybody's so scared. Like, you want to jump out and be, Kendrick on the jump. You want to be Drake on the jump. You want to be Justin Bieber at 18 and get millions. But, the right way to do it is to take every step and to, for real, you don't be afraid of small beginnings, because everybody has to start somewhere. That's my advice. And then also, don't kid yourself. There's a lot of people out here, that's not your gift. Why do you keep working on something that is clearly not your gift? You have to really understand, am I great at this? Not everybody is great at music. Not everybody. Nowadays, you could be a great ball player, but now they're saying that the NBA, you're going to have to be even taller than you were before. And so be realistic about it. And I don't mean, oh, you're from North Chicago, Waukegan. You from the South Side, way out. We on the East Side killers. How you think you going to do a little Bibby, who's my little brother? G Herbo, Queen Key, I'm shouting out all. Now, one of the things that I've always wanted to do and try to do is, even with Bibby, Herb, Juice World, all the guys from here, Queen Key, is to have them come down to my studio in Atlanta and give them encouragement. Because sometimes when you're from a city in the Midwest like Chicago, Indiana, Milwaukee, Ohio, you just don't feel like there's no representation. You see no celebrities. You're from Atlanta, you see Lil Baby. You see, Andre 3000 statues that they're putting up. You know what I mean? So you see that representation. So, get out of where you're from. You're never a prophet in your own town. This is me 20 years later coming back. You know what I mean? But if I jumped off 20 years ago and say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. What? It wasn't until I'm Grammy-nominated, but sometimes you have to leave where you're from and go find yourself. And that's what happened for me. I moved to New York and was blessed with Rosie Perez and Maxwell and Eric Johnson, and some of the biggest, most humble stars in the world saw that I had a realness. That's one thing about Chicago. We come real. You can really see who's phony and who's not. I'm sorry. You could look up the lie. You'll lie. Or you cannot, you know what I mean? And so I love that about what I've gotten from Chicago. Like, the realness that we have is why Queen Key is winning. That's why Herb and Bibby and so many from here do so well. There ain't nobody like us in Chicago here. I mean, I know 24 is for everybody, but I just had to shout out my town, I always say Chicago broke me in a good way. You break a bone and come back stronger, right? It's tough out here, I had a hard time. I don't like to talk about it all the time, but I started getting arrested at 13, and here I am at 16, here I am at 19. Here, I had to find my way out of trouble, because if you're in a group of people, going back to your other thing, being around people who, make you want to do trouble, or sometimes you feel like it's the only way to get up, I love that Chicago has culture and food and house music, and I believe we do have a lot of, outside of the blues, we got all kinds of people in Chicago who come from all over too. Chicago's a base where, like, they're coming from Milwaukee, they're coming from they're coming from Indiana, they're coming from Michigan, and so I like the melting pot of it. I love that there's so many different cultures. Molly Wilson, and I'm at 24/7 HH, and I just enjoy my time with y'all.